Ever feel like politics is happening in some far-off land, you know,
Yeah.
detached from your own daily struggles, especially when you're barely making ends meet? Like, does my vote even matter when I'm worried about putting food on the table?
It's a feeling that resonates with a lot of people, that disconnect between the world of politics and the realities of just like living paycheck to paycheck or struggling to make ends meet. It's a real problem.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We're talking about people for whom politics feels irrelevant because survival is the priority. But who exactly are we talking about? When we say the poor, it's a broad term.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about those in extreme poverty, although they are certainly the most vulnerable. We're also talking about the working poor, the folks who have jobs, maybe even multiple jobs, but are still constantly teetering on the edge of financial disaster.
Right. Like one unexpected car repair away from missing rent.
Mm.
That living paycheck to paycheck reality that so many people face. And it's not a small segment of the population either.
Exactly. It's a surprisingly large portion of society, and it cuts across demographics. You know, think about single parents juggling multiple jobs, young people drowning in student loan debt, immigrants navigating a new system, and those facing disabilities or housing insecurity. It's a diverse group facing a common struggle.
And often a silent struggle.
Right.
Because it can feel shameful to be struggling financially in a society that values success and often equates it with wealth.
Absolutely. There's a stigma attached to poverty that can make it even harder for people to speak up, to demand better, to engage in a system that already feels rigged against them.
We've got this huge EE chunk of the population feeling alienated from the political process.
Yeah.
But WHY, if the system is supposed to represent everyone, why does it feel so skewed towards those with money and power?
At the risk of sounding cynical, it often boils down to just that money and power. Campaigns are expensive, lobbying efforts shape policy, and those with wealth simply have a louder voice in the halls of power. It creates a self perpetuating cycle where the needs of the less affluent are consistently overlooked.
It's like that classic image of stacks of cash morphing into slick campaign ads. The message is clear. Money talks. And if you don't have money, it's hard to even get a word in edgewise.
It goes even deeper than that. Think about the everyday barriers to political engagement that people in poverty face. When you're working multiple jobs, finding the time to vote or attend a town hall meeting can feel like an impossible luxury.
Right. It's not just about the financial cost of participating, but also the cost of time. Transportation, childcare, basic survival often takes precedence over political engagement.
Exactly. And that sense of being overwhelmed, of just trying to survive, can lead to a feeling of isolation and powerlessness.
It's hard to think about big picture change when you're just trying to keep your head above water.
It's like you're so focused on the immediate crisis that you can't even see the horizon, let alone think about how to change the course of the ship. That's a powerful analogy, and it highlights the very real trap that many people in poverty find themselves in, a trap that's reinforced by a system that often seems designed to keep them there. It's a vicious cycle,
Right.
and it's one that we need to break.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture here, but I'm always an optimist at heart. So let's talk solutions. What can actually be done to change this system, to make it more responsive to the needs of those struggling financially?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. But I think the source material we've been diving into offers some interesting perspectives. It starts with recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. We need a multi-pronged approach that addresses both immediate needs and long-term systemic change.
So like a two-pronged attack. Let's start with the immediate needs. What can we do to alleviate the suffering of those who are struggling right now?
Expanding and strengthening the social safety net is crucial. Programs like food stamps, housing assistance, subsidized healthcare, and childcare assistance can provide a lifeline for those who are barely keeping their heads above water.
These are programs that literally keep people alive,
Yeah.
keep families together, keep kids fed. It's about providing that basic level of support that allows people to breathe, to get back on their feet.
Exactly. But we can't stop there. These programs are essential, but they're ultimately a Band-Aid solution. They address the symptoms of poverty, but not the underlying causes.
Okay, so then what about those long-term solutions? How do we actually tackle the root causes of poverty
Yeah.
and create a system that's more equitable and just?
That's where things get really interesting and but potentially controversial. One idea that's been gaining traction is universal basic income, or UBI.
Ah, yes, UBI, the idea of giving everyone a guaranteed basic income, regardless of whether they're employed or not. It sounds radical, I'll admit. But the more I learn about it, the more intrigued I become. So break it down for me. How would it work? And more importantly, could it actually work?
The basic premise is that everyone, regardless of their employment status or income level, would receive a regular, unconditional cash payment from the government. The idea is to provide a financial floor, a safety net, that ensures everyone has enough to meet their basic needs.
So it's not just about replacing existing welfare programs. It's about creating a whole and new W system that guarantees a basic standard of living for everyone. But wouldn't that be incredibly expensive? And wouldn't it disincentivize people from working?
Those are the two most common criticisms leveled against UBI, and they're valid concerns. The cost would certainly be significant, and it would require a major restructuring of our current social safety net. But proponents argue that the long-term benefits outweigh the upfront costs.
Okay, I'm listening. What are those
Right.
potential benefits? Paint me a picture of a world where UBI is a reality.
Imagine a world where people aren't trapped in dead-end jobs just to survive, where they have the financial freedom to pursue education or training, to start their own businesses, to invest in their communities. A world where people can take risks, be creative, and contribute to society in ways that are currently impossible for those struggling to make ends meet.
I love the optimism. It's a compelling vision, I'll grant you that.
Hmm.
But wouldn't some people just use that extra money to, I don't know, buy lottery tickets, sit around watching TV all day?
That's a common misconception. Studies of basic income pilots around the world have actually shown the opposite. People don't just stop working when they have a guaranteed income. In fact, many use it to improve their lives, to invest in their future, or to start businesses.
So it's not about creating a nation of couch potatoes. It's about empowering people to make choices that improve their lives and contribute to society in more meaningful ways.
Exactly. And let's not forget the potential impact on mental health. The stress and anxiety of living in poverty can be debilitating. UBI could provide a level of financial security that would free people from that constant worry, allowing them to focus on their well-being and their families.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal.
Mm.
But even if UBI is the answer, let's be realistic. It's a huge systemic change.
Yeah.
That would require a massive political shift. And as we've already discussed, the system seems designed to resist that kind of change, especially when it comes to benefiting those who are already marginalized.
You're absolutely right. It's a long game, and it would require a significant shift in public opinion and political will. But that doesn't mean we should give up on the idea.
So where do we go from here? If UBI is a long-term goal, what can be done in the meantime to empower those who are struggling financially to have a voice in the political process?
Alongside policy changes, we need to focus on empowering people from the ground up. We need to invest in civic education, particularly in communities that have been historically disenfranchised.
It's about giving people the tools and knowledge to understand how the system works, how to advocate for their needs, how to make their voices heard, even when those voices have been silenced or ignored for too long.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual empowerment, it's about building strong communities where people can support each other, organize, and demand change from the bottom up.
This brings to mind the idea of grassroots organizing,
Right.
people coming together at the local level to create change from within their own communities.
Absolutely. We need to support and amplify the work of community organizers, especially those who come from the communities they serve. They have the lived experience, the trust, and the understanding of local needs that are essential for creating meaningful and lasting change.
And it's not just about demanding change from elected officials. It's also about creating alternative systems of support, like community-owned businesses, worker cooperatives, and mutual aid networks.
These are all powerful examples of people taking matters into their own hands, building systems of resilience and empowerment outside of the traditional structures of power.
So we've got this two-pronged approach. On one hand, we need to push for systemic change, like expanding the social safety net and exploring radical ideas like UBI. And on the other hand, we need to support grassroots movements and community-led solutions that empower people from the ground up.
It's about working towards a future where everyone has a chance to thrive, not just survive. A future where everyone has a voice, not just those with wealth and influence.
It's a powerful vision. But I have to ask, why should the average listener care about this? If they're not struggling financially, why should they be concerned about the plight of those who are? It's easy to feel like poverty is someone else's problem.
That's a dangerous way of thinking, because poverty doesn't just affect those who experience it directly, it impacts us all.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more. How does poverty affect those who aren't living it firsthand?
Think about the ripple effects. Poverty contributes to higher crime rates, strains our healthcare system, and undermines our economy. It creates instability, division, and distrust.
It's like a crack in the foundation of our society. And if we ignore it, it will only continue to grow, eventually threatening the stability of the entire structure.
Exactly. And beyond the economic and social consequences, there's the moral imperative. We are all interconnected. The well-being of one affects the well-being of all.
It's about recognizing the shared humanity of those who are struggling, their dreams, their potential. Ignoring this issue only deepens the inequality divide, and that's not a world any of us should want to live in.
It's about creating a society where everyone has a chance to reach their full potential, regardless of their financial circumstances.
It's about building a world where everyone has a seat at the table, where everyone's voice is heard, and where everyone has the opportunity to contribute to the collective good.
It's a vision worth fighting for. It all starts with a shift in perspective, you know? We need to stop viewing poverty as like a personal failing and start recognizing it as a systemic issue. It's about understanding that the choices people make are often constrained by the circumstances they're born into.
It's about empathy,
Right.
putting ourselves in the shoes of those who are struggling, and understanding the challenges they face daily.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that the policies we support, the candidates we vote for, and the actions we take have a real impact on the lives of others. We can't just sit on the sidelines and expect someone else to fix it.
So it's not just about charity, it's about justice. It's about creating a system that's fair and equitable for everyone.
Precisely. And that requires us to be engaged citizens,
Hmm.
to hold our elected officials accountable, and to demand policies that promote economic justice and opportunity for all.
We've talked a lot about big picture solutions, but what about at the individual level? What can our listeners do in their own lives to make a difference?
There are so many ways to get involved. You can volunteer at a local food bank or homeless shelter. You can mentor a young person from a low-income background.
You can donate to organizations that are working to combat poverty and promote economic justice.
You can support businesses that prioritize fair wages and ethical practices.
You can educate yourself on the issues and have conversations with your friends and family about the importance of economic equality.
And most importantly, you can vote.
Every election, from local school boards to national races, has an impact on the policies that shape our society.
Your vote is your voice. Use it to demand a better world for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of hope. It can feel overwhelming to confront these issues, but we can't let despair paralyze us. Change is possible, but it requires all of us to step up and do our part.
It starts with believing that a better world is possible. And it continues with each of us taking action, no matter how small, to make that vision a reality.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. It's been really eye-opening.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listeners, we'll see you next time for another deep dive.